Now, for those that have been following my channel for a while, may recognize my old recipe called, it was titled The Cheesecake Factory Cheesecake Remake, where I actually created a recipe from someone overseas. Overseas in the UK, Lupin flour has actually been very, very popular for a while now, but it's slowly making its way over to America. The thing is though, is it really worth it? I gotta say, I don't really think so. I think it has its uses, but we're gonna test that out right now. Several people have contacted me or commented on a video under a photo. You should try Lupin flour, or you should add a little Lupin flour. You know, it'll make a little difference. So I wanna put that to the test right now. So let's actually break down exactly what is Lupin flour. So Lupin flour is naturally high in protein, low in carbohydrates, sugar, and it's gluten-free and non-GMO. It is high in fiber and antioxidants. It reduces appetite. So apparently what they're trying to say is Lupin flour is supposed to replace almond flour. Now, as we already know, almond flours are blanched almonds. Lupin flour comes from an actual bean. On the back of this package, there's an allergy statement saying a small percentage of people are allergic to lupin. Do not eat if you're allergic to peanuts, almonds, or legumes. So that already knocks it off. I mean, if you're allergic to almonds, I mean, you probably can't eat this anyway. So that's not better in that sense already. A fourth of a cup is 74 calories, 2 grams of fat, 1 gram net carb, and 12 grams of protein. So since we're talking about almond flour, I have my almond flour right here. Let's compare it with that. Almond flour for a fourth of a cup is 170 calories, 14 grams of fat, 3 grams of carbohydrates, and 6 grams of protein. Now, price-wise, I was able to get this Lupin flour off of Amazon for $10.24. Lupin flour isn't available in the stores like that. I'm not even gonna say like that. I've never seen it in the store. So, you know, that's a major, major downfall. Now, almond flour, as you know, is available nationwide, and this particular brand that I got from Costco is only $11.99. $11.99 for 3 pounds. Now, if you don't have a Costco card, you can easily find it. A good example is another great brand is Anthony's, and they're $14.99 for 2 pounds on Amazon. But for $10.24, you only get 1 pound of this. So not only is it hard to get, but it's expensive. Now, I will give credit where it's due. It's great to know that the calories are much lower, but it is higher in fiber, and that's going to play out for something. But you actually don't really benefit considering, you know, if you're already allergic to nuts, this may be a problem as well for you. So let's do a couple tests. Now, one thing I know about almond flour is it isn't very absorbent when it comes to water. Now, I'll do a video on that another time, but that's why when you're doing anything baking with almond flour, it isn't good to use things like heavy cream, almond milk, or anything of that nature. Now, granted, I know in the past I have used these things, but I didn't know what I was doing. But this is why, because it's not absorbent. And if you look at your screen, you can see exactly what I mean there. Let's test Lupin flour. What I used with almond flour was a tablespoon of almond flour and a tablespoon of water. We're gonna do the exact same thing with Lupin flour. Now, if you notice, it actually absorbs the water, which is great. So that's probably coming from the higher fiber in it. But if you notice, it gets gummy. Like, to be honest, it actually it almost resembles the slurry you'll get if you put whey protein and water together, or whey protein and almond flour and water together. That's actually what you get, or maybe a little xanthan gum into it. That's letting me know that there are advantages to using Lupin flour. Just that gummy aspect or whatever, you can do a lot with that, depending on how sticky it is. So if you look at your screens, you'll see coconut flour up next. I just got curious. I just wanted to toss that in there and just to see what would happen. And you can notice the distinct difference between coconut flour, Lupin, and almond flour. Now, coconut flour and Lupin does absorb the water, but it does it very, very differently. Coconut flour is very dry. Lupin flour just kind of uses it and makes a gum out of it. What I want to do is a mug cake test. Now, mug cakes are very popular. Some of them are rather delicious, some not so much, but you know, some can get a little eggier every once in a while. I try to keep that out of my recipes, but that's rather here nor there. Since we're doing a control group, or if that's the proper name for it, but anyway, what we're doing is across the board in these mug cakes, what you're gonna get that is consistent across every single one is a half a teaspoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of oil / butter, 1 large egg, and that's it. Everything else is gonna change. So the first thing up we're gonna test the almond flour, 1 tablespoon of almond flour and 1 tablespoon of Lupin flour. If you look, you'll see the consistency is not bad looking, but from now this was not designed for taste, so it's probably not going to be very good. But and I'm looking for texture here. It's very soft, and you can say it's moist, but I wouldn't characterize it as moist because it pretty much dissolves as soon as you put it in your mouth, and that's not really a texture to me. That's not really the word a moist cake or a moist crumb to me. The next test is 2 tablespoons of Lupin flour and no almond flour whatsoever. Now, if you look, the texture is actually quite the same. It's not very different at all. So there is a bit more of a bite to it, but it still just simply dissolves in your mouth like super fast. And like I said, and it dissolves so quickly, it's almost like you don't even have anything in there. But so far, I'm not really convinced that it's any better or less. So the best way to do that, let's test one of my mug cakes out. Now, over the years, I've perfected the mug cake. I've worked extra hard at it, and if you notice in some of my recipes, I'll go back and I'll redo them and update them to the way I make mug cakes now. So the way I make mug cakes, I still kept everything consistent. So the thing that makes mine is two tablespoons of almond flour and 1 tablespoon of coconut flour. What this does is it creates a certain consistency, and the consistency is very close to a regular cake, and it's strong enough, the flavors of the flours are strong enough to fight back that eggy taste. You know, so you get a great texture and you get a great flavor. Now, if you notice, looking at my typical recipe, the crumb is a bit different. If you look at it, the crumb is a bit more solid, and when it comes to taste, it's more cake-like. You may say, Darius, oh my God, you're biased because this is your type of recipe, you know, you made it. But I mean, look at the camera. You can see it different for yourself. And I mean, I'm not digging into the spoon any harder or any less. It's just, I mean, it is what it is. I would say the next thing to do is, let's see if we can replace Lupin flour altogether. And what I mean by doing that, let's replace my 2 tablespoons of almond flour with Lupin flour and add the coconut flour in there. Surprisingly, if you look at your screens, what you get is something very similar to what the almond flour was. Taste is different though. It's slightly firmer. And if you remember earlier when you looked at the coconut flour was far more absorbent. I'm not gonna say it was more absorbent, but it absorbed the liquid differently than the way the Lupin flour did. So when you combine those two things that are super absorbent, I would actually say you would need less of the ingredients. Now, another thing to note, the coconut flour and the Lupin flour mix had a much milder flavor. Now, as I said, I didn't make the mug cakes to taste good because they definitely didn't do that, and they weren't delicious, but they all had a very distinctive taste because, like I said, the only thing you had were the flours. But the Lupin flour is pretty much tasteless. I will say there's one major bonus with it. So to end this video, would I use it? I still think it's overhyped in the sense that it's some miracle flour, like it's far better than anything else. What I will say is I see a place for it in keto. I see a place for it in keto baking. I wouldn't use Lupin flour by itself. You know, you can, of course you can do what you want to do, but you can use it by itself. But there's a reason I mix things, because you get a better texture overall, because everything brings its own element. Would I recommend anyone go out and just buy this instead of almond flour? No. Honestly, no. There's a video that went viral using French fries. Using Lupin flour French fries. You could do that. You know, actually, my sinus is a little itchy. I hope I'm not allergic to it. Shoot. I hope I'm not allergic to it. But anyway, sorry, I'm having a hard time talking. Unless there's a particular recipe that calls for it that you just want to make, I just don't see a reason for it. I mean, you know, in a situation to where you want to save on calories, I can see where you want to save there. As far as cost-wise, you know, you just get far more for the almond flour. I would actually be curious to see how Lupin flour will perform in a sauce, though. It's absorbent like, to be honest, it's absorbent like flour is. It may actually be very beneficial in thickening sauces. I don't know yet. Don't go out and do it and say, Darius told me. Nah, I didn't, because I have not tested it myself yet. I hope you guys have a great night, great day, morning, whatever it is that you get a chance to watch this. And I am Darius. This is Sugarless Crystals, your sugar-free destination of YouTube. I'm out.